Welcome back, everyone! I am absolutely thrilled to have you here for another explainer, where we take complex financial concepts and turn them into clear, unforgettable stories. Today, we're jumping right back into Aarav's incredible journey. Remember that mysterious brass coin Dev handed him in our last chapter? Well, Aarav has been tossing and turning literally all night, feeling the unusual weight of that coin in his hands, completely unable to sleep. We're about to uncover exactly what that coin means, and trust me, it's going to change the way you look at investing forever. Just to quickly orient us, we're deep into the personal finance module. We've conquered the basics, and today we're tackling Chapter 7, the concept of a fund and NAV. Coming up next will be the mutual fund fact sheet, but for now, let's jump right in. So, back to Aarav. He's sitting awake in the pitch dark, just staring at this heavy brass coin. Engraved right on the front are three simple yet entirely baffling letters: N.A.V. He keeps asking himself the exact same question. If everyone owns the same reservoir of wealth, why does everyone receive different numbers of ownership tokens? It's a giant puzzle that just refuses to let him rest. As the sun finally rises, Aarav heads out and finds the village elder waiting for him. But they aren't in a classroom. They're standing beside a quiet village square. Right in the middle sits a massive, heavy iron cooking pot. Smoke is gently rising from beneath it, and families are gathering around. A wealthy merchant walks up and empties 10 heavy bags of rice into the pot. A farmer adds 2 bags of vegetables. Then an old widow quietly steps forward and drops in just one small bowl of rice. And here's the absolutely amazing part. Nobody complains. Nobody asks for a separate, smaller pot. Every single ingredient is mixed together into one giant meal, and everyone is smiling as though the whole pot belongs to them. Aarav watches this whole scene, assuming they're all about to sit down and eat. But when lunch is ready, something completely unexpected happens. The villagers don't just grab bowls of food equal to what they put in. Instead, the elder hands out little wooden meal tokens. The number of tokens each person receives is perfectly matched to how much food they contributed earlier that morning. Only after the tokens are handed out is the actual meal served. Okay, let's dive into this because Aarav is just as confused as we might be at first glance. He looks at the elder and protests, "Why make this so complicated? Why not simply remember who contributed what?" But the elder just asks Aarav to think about the future. What if 50 more families join tomorrow? What if 20 leave next week? What if the value of the ingredients changes every single day? Aarav goes silent. He realizes that human memory just isn't enough. When things are constantly changing, the system desperately needs a permanent, scalable way to measure ownership fairly. To make this concrete, the elder pulls out a notebook and transitions from food to actual money. He shows Aarav a list of 5 family members who decide to pool their cash together instead of rice and vegetables. The uncle brings 65,000 rupees, the aunt brings 50,000 rupees, the cousin brings 80,000 rupees, the brother brings 30,000 rupees, and the nephew brings 50,000 rupees. When you add it all up in that giant metaphorical pot, the total money collected comes to exactly 2,75,000 rupees. The elder taps the notebook and smiles. He tells Aarav, "This collection right here is called a fund. It's a beautifully simple concept when you strip away all the fancy financial jargon. It isn't a company. It isn't a single stock. It's simply money pooled together by multiple people for one shared, common purpose. That is the true essence of a fund." But a fund cannot survive in chaos. The elder grows serious and explains the strict rules of this family pot. First, there must be one common investment objective. Aarav realizes this means you can't use the uncle's money to chase high-risk stocks and the nephew's money to sit safely in bonds. It's one fund with one unified goal. Second, there must be identical percentage returns for everyone. You might treat a big investor to a nicer cup of tea in the waiting room, but when the fund earns a 10% return, absolutely everyone earns a 10% return on their money. The treatment of the capital is perfectly fair. So how do we track this fair share? Well, the elder places a basket of blank wooden discs on the table. To solve the puzzle of measuring ownership, he needs a starting line. So he arbitrarily decides that the starting value of one wooden disc will be exactly 10 rupees. With this 10 rupees starting price, the math becomes absolutely effortless. The uncle who contributed 65,000 rupees gets his money divided by 10, resulting in 6,500 units. The aunt who brought 50,000 rupees gets exactly 5,000 units. Everyone receives a precise, measurable number of units that perfectly represents their proportional slice of the total $275,000 pie. Now, what's really interesting about this is the realization Aarav has right at this exact moment. He asks if 10 rupees is the quote-unquote real value. The elder shakes his head. The starting value doesn't matter at all. It could have been 5 rupees. It could have been 50 rupees. The wooden discs themselves are not money. They are simply a mathematical proof of ownership in that shared reservoir. Which brings us to the really exciting part. That pooled $275,000 doesn't just sit in the iron pot doing nothing. A skilled fund manager takes that money and puts it to work, investing it across several different companies. As days pass, the market moves. Some companies do incredibly well, and naturally, the overall value of the entire pot grows. The whole village is celebrating because their combined wealth is increasing. But Aarav, ever the thinker, asks, okay, now what? How do we measure this new wealth? And right here, the elder finally reveals the meaning behind the engraving on the brass coin. NAV, net asset value. Because the total value of the massive pot has grown, the value of that single wooden disc, that one unit of ownership, must grow by the exact same percentage. It's nothing mystical. NAV is quite simply the current value of one single ownership unit of the fund. To prove it, the elder draws the final equation right there in the dirt. How do we actually calculate this new value? It's a 3-step journey. Step 1. You take the value of all assets, literally everything the fund owns today. Step 2, you subtract the expenses, because running a fund, doing the research, paying the manager, well, that costs money. What you have left is the net value of the pot. Actually, scratch that. It's the net asset value of the entire fund. Finally, step 3, you divide that total net value by the number of units that have been issued to the investors. That gives you your new NAV. We aren't calculating the value of one stock, we're calculating the exact daily value of your specific slice of the whole fund. And this brilliantly illustrates a massive misconception in the investing world. Aarav looks at the math and suddenly looks a bit worried. He asks, so if Fund A has an NAV of 20 rupees and Fund B has an NAV of 500 rupees, does that mean the 20 rupee fund is cheaper and a better deal? The elder explains that comparing NAVs is exactly like comparing the price of a slice of pizza without knowing the actual size of the pizza. A lower NAV doesn't mean a fund is cheap. It just means they sliced their initial pot into more pieces, or maybe they just started at a lower initial value. The number alone tells you absolutely nothing about the underlying value or expense of the fund. So when you're looking to invest your own money, never judge a fund's quality or cheapness just by looking at the price of its NAV. As the lesson wraps up, the old man draws a map in the dirt, and Aarav breaks into a wide smile as all the pieces of his journey finally connect. Think about it. The forest taught him that time creates wealth. The dragon showed him how inflation eats purchasing power. The mountain proved that wealth needed a long-term purpose, like retirement. This led them to the fund manager, who manages the wealth, placing it into the family pot, which we now know is a fund. And finally, the ownership token, the NAV, makes all of that wealth perfectly measurable. None of these were separate lessons. They're actually one continuous engine of financial knowledge. But just as they're leaving the village, Aarav spots something sitting on the fund manager's desk. It's a thick booklet, absolutely packed with charts, historical returns, expenses, portfolio holdings, and risk measures. Before Aarav can even peek inside, the manager gently closes it. You'll learn this tomorrow, he says, tapping the cover. It reads, Mutual Fund Fact Sheet. Every great investor must learn to read this book before trusting their hard-earned money to the family pot. And that, my friends, is exactly where we'll pick up in our next explainer. What secrets are hiding in that fact sheet? Well, you'll just have to stick around to find out.